pal.
Hey there, this is Pete Townsend from Norio Ventures, and welcome to Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is kindly sponsored by Ireland's fintech and financial services recruitment specialists, Top Tier Recruitment. If you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, it's highly advisable that you build a relationship with the team at Top Tier Recruitment. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com and tell them we sent you. Before we get into things this week, just know that Owen Fitzgerald has been working hard on the Money Never Sleeps newsletter each week for the past month. We're digging deeper into some of the topics we cover on this show and connecting the dots between these topics and life as we know it. You can subscribe to our Money Never Sleeps newsletter at moneyneversleeps.substack.com. Also, we launched our new website this week as well, so check that out on moneyneversleeps.ie. For this week's episode, we welcome Elaine Deehan from Starling Bank back to the show, with a session recorded as part of a virtual meetup organized by FSCom for the European Women's Payment Network last month. Elaine was originally on episode 23 when she was the founder of PocketWire. We remastered that for episode 76, so it's one of our most popular episodes. Elaine opens up this chat, and you'll hear her first. So away we go with this week's episode of Money Never Sleeps.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Hi, thanks, Alison, and delighted to take part in your first ever virtual event. It's very exciting. So hopefully we don't have too many hiccups. And sure, if we do, isn't that what it's all about? So thanks for having me. I joined Starling back in August of last year as country manager for Ireland, and we have been working on the bank license application with Central Bank of Ireland. So that's progressing, and hopefully, all things going well, we will be looking to launch in Ireland probably in the early part of next year. All things going well, but we've a lot of work to do. And at the moment, I'm getting to work directly with the UK bank, which is very exciting and really getting kind of Starling under my skin. So I'll tell you loads more about that as we chat over the course of the next hour.
Thank you, Elaine. We're really looking forward to that. We're also really pleased to have Pete join us as our interviewer today. And Pete is a well-known fintech advisor and podcaster. But Pete, would you introduce yourself in your own words and then take it over?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to keep this short, right? Because we've only got a few minutes. But so beyond hosting the Money Never Sleeps podcast, where we explore entrepreneurship, startup ecosystems, and the weird and wonderful of finance and technology, I'm also a startup advisor and early stage tech investor. So basically, I help answer three questions. How do I get customers if I don't have a product? How do I build a product without cash flow from customers or investors? How do I get investors without a product or customers? And if any of that reminds you of Lloyd Dobler, Lane and I were talking about movies earlier. We'll give you a link to a YouTube link to the video later on. But Lloyd Dobler is played by John Cusack in the late 1980s movie Say Anything. You just got a virtual high five from me. So if you recognize that at all, my life is through pop culture and finance. But glad to be back in the hot seat with Elaine. Elaine and I met a couple of years ago and had her on what was episode 23, I look back, Elaine, of Money Never Sleeps. We replayed that on episode 76, or remastered it, like I like to say. But, we're obviously on live for our audience today rather than having the comforts of the pre-recorded medium to then go edit afterwards, right?
Yeah, so better not say anything too... we better not fall out, Pete.
I know. Oh, yeah. Like that'll happen. All right. So you want to just get right into it then, yeah?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So like I said, we met back in 2018 in your pre-Starling life, and you told your story on episode 23. I feel like we clicked pretty quickly because back then we had the benefit of that human interaction of when someone you click with, or when you're clicking with somebody, your pupils dilate, right? And you subconsciously notice that, and that just starts to build a bridge between two people. Hard to do over Zoom, but I was on a Zoom with someone the other day who was getting really close up to his camera, and I'm like, dude, we clicked, because I could see his pupils, right?
How am I doing?
Yeah. Very good. We're already there. But that was, when we did that, Elaine, that was my first one-to-one interview. right? As
yeah,
Owen,
because Owen was his one of his kids was sick. Yeah.
exactly. Owen Fitzgerald, for everyone out there, he's Enterprise Ireland, but he's got 5 kids. 5 kids, 5 days a week. You're going to have something each day that happens, right? So, you're such an engaging conversationalist anyway. You made it very easy for me to run points, so thank you. But looking back, right, it was pretty serendipitous about what I'm going to call your awakening, right? Around the 2012, 2013, 2014 timeframe, and also my awakening, which kind of took place at the same time, but that's a story for another day. It was your experience with the innovation lab at Citi, then on a CurrencyFair, and then starting PocketWire, all before Starling. And I likened this to someone going from Cadbury, then on to Butler's, and then to Godiva on the path to a chocolate addiction, right? Which is you're spending a lot more of your own money, but it tastes just so good. So maybe just give us a bit of insight into the Citi, CurrencyFair, PocketWire trilogy, and why that was important for your leap into Starling. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, the trilogy. So Citi was, I actually went back to Citi. I had done 5 years. My first 5 years of my career were in Citibank. And I went back to Citibank after having my second child, actually. It was at the end of my maternity leave, and I was kind of looking for a new opportunity, and the innovation lab came my way, and I joined the innovation lab then in the really early stages of the innovation lab, and I got to work on a lot of really, really kind of great projects that you wouldn't traditionally get to work on in an incumbent bank or like in a big enterprise bank like Citibank. So we got to work on blockchain. One of the first projects I actually went back to work on after my third maternity leave, actually, my third child, was a blockchain project looking at doing a digital currency for Citibank, or how Citibank could use distributed ledger technology for payment settlement. So it was a brilliant time to be in Citi and getting to work on those opportunities. And the other thing we did a lot in the Innovation Lab was look at startups and the startup ecosystem and the startup mentality, and how you can kind of replicate that in a large company like Citibank, which is really, really hard to do, right? Because there's just much more to startups and being agile than just say I'm going to put a scrum or an agile framework around how we do our projects. It's much more than that. It goes to your cultures, it goes to your values, it goes to your mission and your purpose, and breaking down a lot of the traditional things that exist in big organizations like politics and agendas and silos, and keeping people away from each other. That's how these places have kind of operated for so long. And part of that, like examining, the kind of startup world, I came across CurrencyFair through that. And I really, really liked what they did. I liked what they stood for. And an opportunity came up to join CurrencyFair, and I decided I'd take the leap of faith. And I loved it. I loved working at CurrencyFair. And so I had gone from kind of working on the fringes of the startup world, in a very comfortable position from the, well-funded, money's no object, whatever. You do have different challenges to just kind of being lumped in, and where it's a case of, right, we have to get something done. Just do it, get on and do it. And faced a number of challenges, as directly as a result of being involved in a startup. So you kind of, the issues around trying to engage with big banks and how they kind of shut down and close their doors to smaller fintechs and startups. Experienced that firsthand in CurrencyFair. And I got to work really closely with the founders, and I got to know them really well. And that's where I got the bug. I was bitten by the bug, essentially. And I knew that there was something in me always that I wanted to do something for myself as well, and to give something a try. And towards the end of my time at CurrencyFair, the guys and myself, we chat about lots of different ideas. And the thing about you'll find with entrepreneurs as well is that, not that they get bored, but they love starting things, but they're not necessarily the ones to to scale things. They will start it, get something off the ground, and then they're on to the next thing. They're looking for the next opportunity. And the lads that I was working with were, and I really got that bug, as I said. And so we all kind of left around the same time and tried to start something. We were kind of figuring out, what are we going to do? Are we going to go do CurrencyFair 2.0, or are we going to do something else? And I did some contracts for a couple of for about 6 or 8 months, and that's when kind of I was coming up with the whole concept of PocketWire in my head, trying to solve my own problem as a parent who was trying to teach their kids about pocket money and stopping them losing money. My mother was constantly throwing fivers and tenors my children's way, and sure, God knows you'd find it down the back of the sofa, or you'd find it, you wouldn't know where you'd find it. So I wanted to develop something that was going to address a lot of the pain points in my life. So that's how I started with PocketWire. And I was with some of the guys that I had worked with in CurrencyFair kind of joined me on that journey. So, but unfortunately, so my journey with PocketWire was we raised some money, got the product to a point where we were, ready to be to get investment to take it to the market. So all the things that you were talking about, product to get customers to get funding, and it's that kind of like it's a
virtuous circle.
It's a
virtuous could be a death spiral too.
Yeah, and we were almost on the verge of closing an investment round of nearly $1 million, and then things just fell apart.
And your exact story was mine from 3 years ago. Way too early for me to try to set up a venture fund, and an investor that just fell apart at the last minute, and boom. But I'm kind of looking back on that now and really glad that happened in hindsight, because I don't know what I would have done with that fund, because I was nowhere in terms of preparedness that I needed to be to actually be launching a fund. But anyway.
I'm the same. I mean, my experience with PocketWire is really, I suppose, that, and again, you talk about the trilogy, but yeah, everything I've built upon, my experience with Citi and then with CurrencyFair and Pocketwire really is what opened the door into Starling for me, and my experiences and my learnings, because you have to take stock of the time that I spent on trying to set up PocketWire. And now that I'm sitting here, particularly working with somebody like Anne Bowden, who is doing it and is being extremely successful at it, going, oh Jesus, now I know. Now if I knew then what I knew now, but then I wouldn't be here. So I think I'm in the right place. It's the right place and the right time for me to be with Starling.
Yeah, I like it, and it's what, like you said, you mentioned the bug, and once you get that bug, it doesn't go. There's no cure for it, right? And that, but you find different ways to actually feed the bug, feed the monster a bit, right? And I really like what you found your path into, which is great. Tell us about your role at Starling and how that's all going.
Yeah, so I started with Starling last August. I'm country manager for Ireland, so my role will be, growing the Irish the business when we actually launch. So we've been working closely with Central Bank, getting our bank license application. And I'm also having the opportunity now to work with the UK bank. So when I started, it was very much focused on the license, and we were building relationships with the team in the UK, but not working directly on any specific issues or projects or problems. And since COVID, the UK bank has just it's grown exponentially in the last 4 months, because people have just such a demand for digital banking needs, and Starling is doing things really well. Starling is doing things really quickly and responding to customer needs really, really quickly. So in the last couple of months, they launched the bounce back loan scheme. They're doing the CBILS loan, the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. We've released a number of different products. So the bank is actually busier than ever. We're 100% remote now. Our sites have gone from, London, Southampton and Cardiff. Everyone working in those sites is working remotely, and we managed to transition almost 900 people within a week. So now I'm actually working directly with the head of banking in the UK, supporting her on all of the different initiatives that are going on at the moment. So the bounce back loans, coronavirus loans, and new products then essentially that are kind of were in the pipeline, or maybe kind of things that we wanted to do but have just, we've expedited them because of coronavirus. It's been an absolute baptism of fire. I think I said to one of the guys that I work with, because we've gone from kind of writing policy and procedure and designing what the bank would look like to actually just doing it. I've sat on answering customer queries at 2:00 in the morning. I've gone from, and I feel now, it's like I said to somebody, it was after the bombing of Buckingham Palace in World War II. I'm not liking myself to the Queen Mother or anything like that, but she did say her quote, and I think it's a really interesting one. She said that after Buckingham Palace was bombed, she felt like she could look the people in the East End of London in the face. She knew what they were going through. And I'm like that now. So I've gone from writing these lovely documents and without actually really feeling it and living it, and now I fully get it. This is all really helpful to us when we actually do go live, because I'm dealing with customers first, on the front line and getting kind of real issues, which are even kind of more compounded by the fact that we're going through this pandemic.
I was just going to say that. Do you think you would have gotten that experience of doing all this now and working so closely alongside the UK business if we haven't been going through this whole world on fire moment, right?
No, I don't think we would, because and I suppose in hindsight, Harry hindsight is everyone's best friend, but maybe, when we started back in August, it would have been great to have that opportunity or to do it, but that's not the Starling way. Is just get on with it and do it, whatever needs to be done. And so it's kind of given us the opportunity to pause and reflect. And now that we've done it, and we've been doing it for the last 3 months, it's been fantastic. And it's also kind of deepened our
resolve.
More fire in our belly to say, actually, we really need to plow ahead and build this digital bank and offer it outside of the UK. There's just such a demand and such a need, and the pandemic and COVID and being in lockdown just has proven that, beyond anything we would have thought of.
Exactly. And I can't wait either. And this, I've gone on record a few times saying that, yes, I am going to switch to Starling when you guys launch here in Ireland, both for personal and for business.
I think you're number 2 on the wait list.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. But my mother's number
1. It's glad to hear you got your priorities straight.
I do.
Good. But, you've been so deep into it, and like the trilogy, as we talked about, and that now moving into Starling, and the role unfolding in a little bit of a different way than what you probably anticipated, but in such a way that has actually been beneficial, and that sounds like you really enjoy. Taking a step back from all that for a minute and just looking at the payment space overall, given that this is a payments meetup and chat that we're doing here. I reconnected with my cousin in Hong Kong recently, this guy, Jason. Very long story about him from another day, but there was a fruit bowl in my house that he has responsibility for. But our life's work started overlapping a couple of years ago. He's in Hong Kong running a media thing, looking at business, enterprise, tech, startups, so on and so forth. And when he found out that I was involved in fintech, he said, "Oh, the West is far, far behind the East in terms of fintech and in terms of payments." And I said, "Yeah, I kind of know." And he mentioned something about WeChat. And for those that on the call that aren't familiar with WeChat, it's a mobile lifestyle ecosystem, really, right? It's just a big, it's an app. But it started out with messaging, and then it's social media, and then it's e-commerce. Mobile payments sit behind that. There's Shopify type functionality involved for businesses. And where the actual payment mechanism is your bank is just kind of something that sits in the background there, right? And so my big thing that I'm trying to get my head around, Elaine, is that if the future of payments in the West, if we can look to see how WeChat are doing things there, and imagine in the West a combination of Facebook Amazon, Betterment, Wealthfront type wealth, and all these different type of tools all in one, where really your payment process is just an IBAN that sits in the background. How does a bank that is so plugged into what their customers actually need and want and is intending to continually surprise and delight them with the user experience, how do you still own that customer experience, that user experience, with a proliferation of apps where they just need your IBAN, right? How do you actually bring that all together?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting time, right? And I think what we are seeing is that the likes of the Facebooks and WhatsApp and where they just have such a huge network now of people, like it just makes sense, right, to do the WeChat model and to be able to accept payments and move money around seamlessly. And I do think that a lot of the incumbent banks will struggle with that, right? And so while I suppose if you think like banking, Starling is a bank, but what does separate Starling from the pack of the existing, the big huge banks, is the fact that we don't have those really the legacy technology. Our culture is different. It's a truly agile organization. So I do think that the banks, like, the traditional banks, will struggle because their approach to things will always, and that, don't get me wrong, there's so many smart people working in all of these existing institutions, but they will always be slowed down and held back by the fact that their systems are, it's really, really complex. Actually, I did a thing just before lockdown, and kind of the analogy that I use, I had a picture of it, was the London Tube. Underground, like the London Underground, and the rest of the world above the ground is modernizing, and the tube is trying to serve and to run on this really old network of tunnels, and they're upgrading, but it's hard to make that complete change because it's just so far down and so complex, and that's just how it is, and it's difficult for us to pick apart, the different services. And so there is always going to be blockers and things that they can't do and they can't do quickly. And culture has a big thing to do with that too. So don't get me wrong, it's not just about the technology. So for, say, the likes of Starling, the opportunity that we have is that we can do things really, really fast. And to keep, I suppose, our customers engaged and delighted is by giving them features and things, not that we think that they want, but what they actually want. So, like, to give you an example, and people may have seen, like, Starling launched the connected card, not long after lockdown. It's probably live about 6 weeks now. And I suppose and this is one of the great things about Starling and Anne, and it's very much driven off purpose and vision and our values and what our purpose is. And then that purpose, she really empowers people around her to live and to execute on that purpose. And so, we're in the middle of COVID. We are getting queries from customers. I'm cocooning, or I'm isolating. I need people to help me do my shopping. I don't want to give them my bank card. Can I? People will come and say, will I get in trouble if I give my bank card? Will you notice that it's not me using it? And instead of kind of going out and saying, okay, you can authorize somebody to use your bank card, or yes, we just developed a new product for it. And Anne says, what can we do? Let's do this. And before, within 2 weeks, we launched the connected card, and it has gone on to help thousands and thousands of our customers. It's a card that you get attached to your account, and it has a limit of £200. And they can give us securely with peace of mind that can't be used to withdraw cash. You can't get cash back. You can't use it online. It's for the purpose that it's for, and it will have what its purpose is written on the back. So things like that. And then with our marketplace as well, and our marketplace is, one of the more unique things about Starling, where we are bringing in all of those other services on top of your bank account. So your bank account now is central to your life, and all of the additional financial services around that to help you with your day-to-day kind of financial life. And that's one of the things, that Anne is really passionate about, is making your financial service work for you, not you work for your financial service, and not pushing the problem into the customer's hand, but listening to the customer and actually solving their problem and putting the power back in their hands. So hopefully when we do launch, people will see that Starling is much more than just a mobile app to access this particular bank. All of our banks here have mobile apps to access that bank, but Starling is much more than just the app. It's the true end-to-end experience that you'll get from us.
Yeah, and the marketplace thing is a big thing, right? And the power of networks and the power of the virality of free referrals that you get from just being such a great experience, right, for the customer. There's a lot there. I'm naturally biased, of course, towards Starling, just because of knowing where you come from, Elaine, and your approach, but also then Anne Bowden. I've never met Anne, but I've read a lot of her stuff. I know her background, and what I really like is that when it comes to kind of a startup, a founder having firsthand experience in the problem they're solving is incredibly valuable, right? And if you look at some of the other challenger banks out there that may be approaching it from a tech perspective, well, they've kind of wheeled in some of the banking expertise behind that and said, well, we need to put in a customer service thing. We need to put in a reconciliation thing. We need to put in an institutional service thing, that are basically just doing the same thing that the big banks are doing, but just kind of attaching it on the front end of a nice glossy app, right? Whereas I think with the Starling approach, you guys are clearly challenging the way in which banking is done, right? Yeah. And Chris Skinner wrote this morning, and you kind of highlighted that a bit. Chris Skinner's a blogger, a lot more than that. If you heard me saying that right now, he'd shoot me. But he's big writer on fintech, and he kind of said you got to separate between the needs and the wants, right? And what does your customer actually need, and what do they want compared to what you're actually prepared to give them? So I don't want a mortgage, right? I want a home to call my own, right? I don't want savings products. I want someone to protect my money and to perhaps help it grow, right? And it's just trying to dig into that. Any kind of just for the last couple of minutes, any key lessons learned that have stood out over the last nearly year now, in terms of that customer experience that you're happy to share with others?
I mean, the connected card is just a simple example. I suppose what's good about that example, it shows you how quickly we can do it. So we respond to our customers' needs really fast. And again, that's the beauty of being in an organization that where the technology really enables that. So the technology is the enabler rather than just being the thing that is going to solve all problems, because ultimately, as you say, it is about what the customer actually wants or needs. We do that in a number of ways in Starling. We can get that through data, and the data is really powerful. You can use that data. So we can see right now that the way customers or consumers are using their cards to spend is a lot different than it was pre-COVID, right? So people are now doing the big weekly shop, and the value of spend has gone up. The volume of the transactions has gone down, but the actual value has gone up. So, when you pick that data apart and you can look at that, then you can see, well, our customers have, they have different needs now than they did pre-COVID, and how can we enhance and enrich that experience for them? So things like that, rather than us dictating what, this is what Starling is going to give you, we're using the data to find out what our customers are doing. And that's one of the really interesting approaches that Starling takes. And it's very data, and we always have sufficient data to back up whatever we're doing. Starling is one of the only banks in the challenger space where you can ring up and you can actually speak to a person 24/7. And what you do get from those interactions is you really understand what your customers want. So, we're not shutting down shop at 5:00 in the afternoon, because customers' financial lives, the amount of people who actually interact with us between the hours of, say, midnight and 6 a.m. is incredible. A lot of people like to do their banking and look after their financial needs at that time of night. So we have full support to do that. We're able to do it, and we're doing it remotely as well. But, things happen in a person's life. Fraud happens. Maybe they're up in the middle of the night thinking that they do want to buy a new home, or they do want to take, we don't do mortgages. But, so that's another example of, our customers have needs and wants that are going to, that are 24/7. We even had people opening bank accounts on Christmas Day. Who'd ever thought that anyone would open an account on Christmas Day? But
was it Santa?
It wasn't. No, he was asleep.
All right. Thanks for sharing all that.
Money never sleeps, pal.
That does it for this week, folks, and thanks to Elaine for opening up her mind one more time to help us figure out why she does what she does. Also, thanks to Alison Donnelly and Elaine Teig from FSCom for inviting me onto the EWPN virtual meetup, and to Tanya Austin for managing the media and recording so wonderfully. Links and show notes for this episode are on our brand new website at moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online. Also, you can subscribe to our Money Never Sleeps newsletter at moneyneversleeps.substack.com. Remember, if you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, it's highly advisable that you build a relationship with a team at Top Tier Recruitment as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com. Don't forget Conan Brophy from Create Sound. He mixes and edits each episode for us and is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I help startups get their products to market, get customers, and finance their vision. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter at norioventures.com if you want to know more. You can follow Owen on Twitter at OwenFitzgerald9. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!
Money never sleeps, pal.